Listen to me. Today is not an ordinary day. Something is shifting right now while you are listening. The universe, heaven, God's spiritual laws are responding, and there is one prayer, simple, deep, powerful, that unlocks massive money today. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today, if you feel pressure, if you feel lack, if money has been delayed, blocked, or slipping through your hands, stay with me, because what you are about to hear is not noise, it is a spiritual key. And Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught this truth for those who were ready. Are you ready? Let me speak to you honestly. You are not struggling because you are lazy. You are not broke because you lack intelligence. You are not behind because God forgot you. No, many good, faithful, praying people struggle financially. They love God. They work hard. They give, they hope, yet money feels stuck. Like a closed door, like a ceiling you keep hitting again and again. And this is where Dr. David Yonggi Cho brought a revelation, a spiritual principle that changed millions of lives. He said something shocking. He said, God works through spiritual laws just as surely as gravity works through natural laws. That means faith is not guessing, prayer is not begging, provision is not random. There is a system, a spiritual flow. And when you align with it, money responds, not because money is your God, but because God is your source. Today you will understand why this prayer is different, why it moves heaven, why it activates the universe, and why money starts finding its way to you when you pray it correctly. Dr. Cho taught the law of faith visualization. He said, if you cannot see it on the inside, you will never hold it on the outside. Let me explain simply. Money does not respond to fear. Money does not respond to desperation. Money does not respond to complaining. Money responds to faith alignment. Just like a radio must be tuned to the correct frequency, your spirit must be tuned to the frequency of provision. When you pray from panic, you block the signal. When you pray from doubt, you scramble the signal. When you pray with clarity, gratitude, and authority, the signal becomes clear. This is why some people pray harder but receive less. They are praying emotionally, not spiritually. Dr. Cho said, faith speaks as if it already exists, not pretending, not lying, but aligning the universe, God's created order, responds to spoken faith. That's why the Bible says, life and death are in the power of the tongue. When you speak the right prayer, you are not asking, you are activating. This prayer works because it does three things at once. First, it acknowledges God as the source, not money itself. Second, it removes inner resistance, fear, guilt, unworthiness. Third, it speaks provision as already released, not delayed. Most people pray like this. God, please help me if it's your will. But faith does not beg. Faith declares. Dr. Cho taught that when Jesus prayed, he didn't say maybe. He said, Lazarus, come forth. Clear, specific, authoritative. This prayer does not say, I hope money comes. It says, I receive what is already provided. And here is the secret. Listen carefully. Money is not created when you pray. It is released. The supply already exists. The channel was blocked. This prayer removes the blockage. Dr. Cho often said, God cannot bless chaos. If your inner world is chaotic, fearful thoughts, self-doubt, conflicting beliefs, your outer world reflects that chaos. This prayer brings inner order. It aligns your heart, your words, your expectations. Think of money like water. If your pipe is cracked with doubt, the water leaks before reaching you. Faith seals the pipe. That's why before you even see money, you feel peace before provision shows up. Confidence rises before doors open. Your spirit becomes calm. That calm is a sign something is moving. Now listen, do not rush this. Let every word settle in your spirit. You can whisper it. You can say it in your heart. You can repeat after me. Father God, you are my source, not money. You are my provider, not people. Today, I align my faith with your abundance. I release fear. I release lack. I release delay. I receive provision now, not by force, but by faith. I see opportunities opening. I see money flowing. I see debts dissolving. I declare that what you have already prepared is now being released into my life. I am worthy not because of perfection, but because of grace. Thank you for supply. Thank you for overflow. Thank you for financial peace. Starting today. Amen. Feel that shift, that calm, that is alignment. Now listen to me closely. After this prayer, do not rush back into fear. Do not say nothing changed. Faith works quietly. Seeds grow underground before breaking the surface. Dr. Cho taught that expectation is the womb of miracles. Watch your words today. Speak calmly. Act confidently. Stay open. Money may come through unexpected channels. A call, an idea, a delayed payment, a new opportunity. Do not limit God. Remember this. Provision does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks practical. But peace is the first evidence. Peace is the receipt. Hold it. This was not random. This was alignment. Take a moment after this video. Sit quietly, breathe, let faith settle. If this spoke to your spirit, write "I receive" in the comments, not for me, for your own declaration. Share this with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to Cho Motivation, because faith grows where it is fed. Remember, you are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are aligning. And when alignment happens, provision follows. Stay blessed. Many people believe that money comes only through hard work, long hours, or constant struggle. While effort is important, Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught something much deeper and more liberating. Money responds to spiritual laws, not struggle. This truth changes everything. Struggle focuses on human strength, but spiritual laws respond to faith alignment. When a person is exhausted, fearful, and anxious about finances, they may be working harder than ever, yet unknowingly pushing money further away. Not because God is punishing them, but because spiritual principles work whether we understand them or not, just like gravity. Dr. Cho often explained that God created the universe with order. Just as seeds produce crops when planted correctly, financial provision flows when spiritual conditions are aligned. Struggling is not a spiritual condition, faith is. When someone lives in constant financial stress, their thoughts, words, and emotions are centered on lack. They wake up thinking about bills, sleep worrying about money, and speak frustration throughout the day. This mindset becomes a signal. Spiritually speaking, it communicates shortage rather than supply. The universe, operating under God's laws, responds to what is consistently believed and spoken. This does not mean faith ignores reality. Faith does not deny bills or responsibilities. Instead, faith changes the position of the heart. Struggle says, I am trapped. Faith says, God is my source. Struggle says, I don't have enough. Faith says, provision is already prepared. Dr. Cho taught that when faith becomes the foundation, money begins to move in ways that logic cannot explain. Opportunities appear. Help arrives unexpectedly. Doors open that effort alone could not open. One of the most powerful ideas Dr. Cho shared was that God does not reward desperation. He responds to alignment. Many sincere people pray from panic. Their prayers sound like emergency calls filled with fear. While God is compassionate, panic-filled prayer often keeps the heart focused on lack instead of supply. Spiritual laws require agreement. When prayer, belief, and expectation are aligned, the flow of provision activates. This is why two people can pray for the same thing, yet experience different outcomes. One prays in fear, the other prays in faith. Money itself is not spiritual, but the flow of money is governed by spiritual conditions. When a person understands this, they stop blaming themselves and stop exhausting their energy in constant worry. Instead, they begin to cultivate inner alignment. They guard their thoughts. They speak differently. They stop saying, I'm always broke, and start declaring, God is supplying my needs. These words are not empty affirmations. They are spiritual agreements. Dr. Cho emphasized that faith must be practiced daily, not only in crisis. Alignment is not a one-time act. It is a lifestyle. When someone chooses gratitude over complaint, trust over fear, and expectation over anxiety, they are no longer struggling against the current. They are flowing with it. This is when money begins to respond. Not because God suddenly noticed them, but because they stepped into the spiritual order that was already available. Struggle makes a person tense, defensive, and closed. Faith opens the heart, the mind, and even perception. When alignment happens, people notice opportunities they once ignored. They have confidence to act. They recognize divine timing. Financial breakthroughs often come quietly, but their impact is lasting. Understanding that money responds to spiritual laws frees the soul. It removes shame, pressure, and self-blame. It reminds you that you were never meant to fight for provision alone. When faith becomes the foundation, struggle loses its power, and divine supply begins to move naturally, steadily, and often faster than expected. Prayer becomes powerful not because of how long it is, how emotional it sounds, or how many times it is repeated, but because of the faith behind the words. Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught that prayer is not meant to be a desperate request sent into the air, hoping that something might change. True prayer is an act of spiritual authority. When prayer is spoken in faith, it does not chase provision, it activates what God has already prepared. This is why prayer, when aligned correctly, unlocks provision that feels sudden, timely, and even miraculous. Many people pray from a place of uncertainty. Their prayers sound like questions rather than declarations. They say, "God, if you can help me," or "Please don't forget me." These words reveal inner doubt. While God understands human weakness, faith-based prayer operates on a different level. Faith does not ask whether God is able. Faith agrees that God is willing and already working. Dr. Cho emphasized that heaven responds when prayer and belief move in the same direction. The Bible says, "Whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them." This statement is not symbolic, it is a spiritual principle. The believing comes first, the receiving follows. Prayer spoken in faith treats provision as present, not distant. It shifts the inner posture from waiting to receiving. That shift is critical because spiritual laws respond to certainty, not hesitation. Dr. Cho often explained that words carry spiritual power. When faith-filled words are spoken, they create agreement between the heart, the mind, and the spirit. This agreement removes resistance. Fear creates resistance. Doubt creates delay. But faith clears the channel. When someone prays with calm confidence, even in the middle of financial pressure, they are signaling trust. That trust allows divine provision to flow without obstruction. Prayer in faith also changes the person praying. Before money changes, the inner condition changes. Anxiety gives way to peace. Confusion gives way to clarity. This inner transformation is not separate from provision. It is part of the process. When fear leaves, wisdom enters. When panic fades, discernment rises. Many financial breakthroughs come because a person suddenly sees the right step to take after praying in faith. Another reason this prayer unlocks provision is because it removes the mindset of begging. Begging places God far away and the person beneath. Faith places God as Father and the believer as receiver. Dr. Cho taught that children do not beg their parents for food, they trust. That trust honors the relationship. Faith-based prayer honors God by trusting His nature as a provider. This kind of prayer also stops the cycle of emotional exhaustion. When people constantly pray in desperation, they remain emotionally drained. Faith-filled prayer, on the other hand, brings rest. That rest is not laziness, it is spiritual confidence. From that place of rest, actions become more effective. Decisions are made with clarity instead of fear. Opportunities are recognized instead of overlooked. Provision often responds quickly when prayer is spoken in faith because alignment happens instantly. The moment faith replaces doubt, the blockage is removed. What was delayed is released. What was stuck begins to move. Dr. Cho taught that faith does not force God's hand. It positions the believer to receive what God has already given. Ultimately, prayer activates provision because it aligns the human heart with divine supply. It is not the volume of prayer that matters, but the certainty within it. When prayer is spoken in faith, it carries authority, peace, and expectation. That combination creates an open channel through which financial provision flows naturally, purposefully, and often at exactly the right moment. Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught that before anything changes on the outside, it must first be formed on the inside. This is the foundation of visualization, and it is one of the most misunderstood yet powerful spiritual principles. Visualization is not imagination for entertainment, nor is it wishful thinking. It is the ability to clearly see in your inner world what God has already promised to bring into your outer world. Until provision becomes real in your spirit, it remains unstable in your life. This is why visualization unlocks financial reality. Many people desire financial breakthrough, but their inner pictures are filled with lack. When they think about the future, they see unpaid bills, debt, and struggle repeating again and again. Even when they pray, these images dominate their thoughts. Dr. Cho explained that the heart functions like a womb. Whatever image is held consistently will eventually give birth. If the inner image is shortage, the outer experience will reflect shortage. Visualization corrects this by replacing fear-based images with faith-based ones. Visualization works because faith needs form. Faith without a clear picture becomes vague hope. When a person can see themselves living without constant financial pressure, paying obligations with peace, giving freely and having more than enough, their spirit begins to accept abundance as normal. This acceptance is crucial. Many people unknowingly reject money because abundance feels unfamiliar or undeserved. Visualization gently trains the inner mind to receive. Dr. Cho taught that God often gives the promise first and the manifestation later. Visualization lives in that space between promise and fulfillment. It holds the promise steady. Just as Abraham was asked to look at the stars and imagine his descendants, believers are invited to see their future provision before it arrives. God did not show Abraham a contract or a timeline. He gave him a picture. That picture sustained faith over time. Visualization also aligns thoughts, emotions, and words. When the inner image is clear, speech changes naturally. A person who sees provision inside begins to speak with calm assurance. They stop saying, "I don't know how I'll survive," and start saying, "God is making a way." These words are not forced. They flow from what the heart believes. This alignment removes inner conflict, which is one of the biggest SES of delayed financial breakthrough. Another reason visualization is powerful is that it sharpens spiritual sensitivity. When someone holds a clear inner picture of financial peace, they become more aware of opportunities connected to that picture. Ideas stand out. Directions feel clearer. This is not coincidence. Faith sharpens perception. Many times provision comes through guidance, not sudden miracles. Visualization prepares the mind to recognize that guidance. Dr. Cho emphasized that visualization must be specific. Vague images produce vague results. Seeing more money is less powerful than seeing bills paid, debts reduced, savings growing, or a specific financial goal reached. Specific images create focused faith. Focused faith produces consistent expectation. Consistent expectation keeps the channel open. It is important to understand that visualization does not replace action. It directs action. When the inner image is clear, actions become purposeful rather than frantic. A person stops chasing every opportunity and starts choosing wisely. Peace replaces pressure. This calm confidence attracts favor, trust, and cooperation from others. Visualization unlocks financial reality because it transforms belief at the deepest level. When the heart truly accepts provision as possible and prepared, resistance dissolves. Faith becomes stable. Fear loses authority. Over time, the outer world aligns with the inner vision. What was once only seen in the spirit gradually becomes tangible, practical, and real. Before any visible financial breakthrough appears, there is usually a quiet but powerful sign that something has already shifted: inner peace. Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of alignment. When the heart comes into agreement with God's provision, anxiety loses its grip. This peace is not emotional numbness or denial, it is spiritual confidence. It signals that the struggle inside has ended, even if the situation outside has not yet changed. Many people expect excitement or sudden joy as proof that a financial miracle is near, but peace often comes first. When fear dominates, the mind is restless, constantly calculating worst-case scenarios. Sleep is disturbed, decisions are rushed, and emotions swing between hope and despair. When faith takes its place, calm settles in. That calm is not passive, it is active trust. Dr. Cho explained that when the heart rests, faith begins to work freely. Peace matters because fear blocks spiritual flow. Fear tightens the inner world. It causes overthinking, self-doubt, and hesitation. Even when opportunities appear, fear can prevent action. Inner peace removes this blockage. It opens the mind to wisdom and clarity. A peaceful person is able to listen, discern, and respond correctly. Many financial breakthroughs are lost not because provision was unavailable, but because fear prevented recognition or action. This peace also changes how a person prays. Instead of repeating desperate requests, prayer becomes quiet and confident. The tone shifts from "God, please help me" to "Thank you for making a way." Dr. Cho emphasized that thanksgiving is a sign of faith. When gratitude rises before results appear, it confirms that the heart already believes provision is coming. This kind of prayer accelerates breakthrough. Another reason peace is a sign of financial alignment is that it reflects trust in timing. Anxiety often comes from impatience. The mind wants immediate results, and when they do not appear, doubt grows. Peace accepts that God's timing is purposeful. It does not mean waiting passively. It means moving forward without panic. This mindset allows steady progress instead of emotional burnout. Inner peace also affects relationships, which are often channels of provision. When a person is calm and confident, they communicate clearly, they negotiate wisely, they build trust. Favor follows peace. Dr. Cho taught that God often uses people as instruments of blessing. A peaceful spirit attracts cooperation rather than resistance. It is important to understand that peace does not mean lack of responsibility. A peaceful person still plans, works, and manages resources. The difference is the absence of fear-driven behavior. Decisions are no longer based on survival, but on wisdom. This shift often leads to better financial outcomes because clarity replaces chaos. Many people mistake peace for inaction, but in spiritual terms, peace is strength. It is the state in which faith operates best. When the heart is settled, the mind becomes creative. Solutions appear, ideas flow. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This is why peace often precedes financial provision. It prepares the inner environment for sustainable blessing. Dr. Cho taught that believers should not chase money but cultivate peace. When peace is present, it is evidence that faith has taken root, that faith activates spiritual laws that move provision into place. While circumstances may still look unchanged for a moment, the inner shift confirms that the breakthrough has already begun. Peace is not the end of the journey. It is the signal that the path is now clear and that financial provision is moving toward manifestation. One of the most hidden reasons financial flow becomes blocked is not lack of opportunity, effort, or even prayer, but what is carried quietly inside the heart. Dr. David Yonggi Cho often taught that fear and guilt are invisible barriers that stop blessings from reaching their destination. These emotions do not shout, they whisper, yet they shape beliefs, decisions, and expectations. When fear and guilt remain unresolved, they create resistance that money struggles to pass through. No matter how much effort is applied on the outside, fear usually comes first. Fear of not having enough, fear of losing what little is already there, fear of making the wrong decision. This fear trains the mind to expect loss instead of gain. When someone lives with constant financial fear, they may unknowingly sabotage opportunities. They hesitate when they should act. They overthink simple decisions. They cling to unhealthy patterns because uncertainty feels dangerous. Dr. Cho explained that fear is not neutral. It actively works against faith. Faith opens channels, fear closes them. Guilt is more subtle but just as powerful. Many people carry guilt related to money, past mistakes, failed investments, unpaid debts, or even the belief that wanting more is selfish or unspiritual. Some feel unworthy of abundance because of previous failures. Others were taught that struggling financially is a sign of humility. These beliefs quietly convince the heart that provision is undeserved. When the heart feels unworthy, it resists receiving, even when supply is available. This is why this prayer is so powerful. It does not only ask for provision, it cleanses the inner space. When fear is released, the mind relaxes. When guilt is released, the heart opens. Dr. Cho emphasized that grace is essential to financial flow. Grace says you are not disqualified. Grace says your past does not cancel your future. When a person accepts grace, resistance dissolves. Releasing fear and guilt also changes how a person relates to money. Instead of seeing money as something fragile or dangerous, they begin to see it as a tool that can serve God's purpose. This shift is important. When money is feared, it controls emotions. When money is understood as provision, it becomes manageable. Peace replaces tension. Dr. Cho taught that faith and fear cannot occupy the same space at the same time. One will always dominate. When prayer addresses fear directly, faith rises naturally. The heart becomes lighter. The mind becomes clearer. Decisions are no longer driven by panic or shame. This clarity often leads to wiser financial choices, which further supports breakthrough. Another powerful effect of releasing guilt is restored expectation. Guilt lowers expectation. It whispers, this won't work for you, or you don't deserve better. When guilt is removed, expectation rises. And expectation is a magnet for provision. God responds to open hearts. When expectation is healthy, the channel remains open. Fear and guilt also affect generosity. A fearful person holds tightly. A guilty person gives to punish themselves or prove worth. But when fear and guilt are gone, giving becomes joyful and balanced. Dr. Cho taught that cheerful giving keeps the flow moving. Money circulates where there is freedom, not pressure. Releasing these inner blockages does not mean pretending fear never existed. It means choosing trust over control and grace over self-condemnation. When fear and guilt lose authority, faith steps forward naturally. The heart becomes receptive. The spirit becomes aligned. At that point, money no longer feels stuck. The blockage is gone, and financial flow can move smoothly. consistently and without struggle. After a prayer is spoken in faith and the inner alignment has taken place, the journey is not finished. What happens next determines whether the breakthrough grows or slowly fades. Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught that expectation is the atmosphere in which miracles continue to live. Prayer opens the door, but expectation keeps it open. When expectation is lost, the channel begins to close again, not because God withdraws, but because doubt quietly replaces faith. Expectation is more than hope. Hope looks forward and says, I wish. Expectation looks ahead and says, I am prepared. When a person truly expects provision, their attitude changes. They remain calm, even when results are not immediate. They continue to speak positively. They act as someone who knows supply is on the way. This steady posture keeps the spiritual flow active. One of the biggest mistakes people make after prayer is returning to old patterns of speech and thought. They pray with faith, feel peace, and then later say, nothing is happening, or I guess it didn't work. Dr. Cho warned that these words cancel expectation. Faith is not fragile, but it must be protected. Just as a seed needs time underground, faith needs consistent expectation to grow into manifestation. Expectation also shapes behavior. A person who expects financial improvement becomes more attentive. They manage money with greater care. They remain alert to opportunities. They take wise steps without panic. This is not forcing results, it is cooperating with them. Dr. Cho emphasized that faith and action must walk together. Expectation gives direction to action. Another reason expectation is vital is that it guards peace. When someone expects good, they are not easily shaken by temporary setbacks. Delays do not feel like failure, they feel like part of the process. This emotional stability allows faith to remain strong. Anxiety weakens expectation, but patience strengthens it. Expectation is sustained through gratitude. Thankfulness keeps the heart open. When someone thanks God even before seeing results, they reinforce their belief that provision is real and near. Dr. Cho taught that gratitude is faith speaking in advance. It says, I trust you enough to thank you now. This attitude keeps the channel clear and active. Expectation also prevents discouragement from others. Not everyone will understand. Faith-based confidence. Some may question, doubt, or discourage. A person who maintains expectation does not argue or defend themselves. They remain steady. This inner certainty protects the miracle from outside negativity. Another key aspect of expectation is consistency. Expectation is not excitement for one day and doubt the next. It is a settled confidence. This consistency tells the spirit, the mind, and even the body that provision is normal and expected. Over time, this becomes a new baseline belief. When belief changes, experience follows. Dr. Cho often reminded believers that let's grow in environments of patience and trust. Rushing, forcing, or constantly checking for results can weaken expectation. Faith rests while it waits. This rest is not inactivity, it is assurance. Sustaining expectation after prayer is an act of spiritual discipline. It requires guarding words, thoughts, and emotions. But the reward is great. Expectation keeps the flow alive. It allows provision to unfold naturally and in the right way. When expectation remains strong, financial breakthrough is not only received, it is sustained and multiplied. As you come to the end of this message, remember this truth: your financial journey is not random, and your life is not overlooked. Dr. David Yonggi Cho taught that God is a God of order, purpose, and abundance, and when you align with His spiritual laws, provision responds. Money is not moved by panic or pressure, but by faith, alignment, and expectation. When these elements come together, what once felt blocked begins to flow naturally. You have learned that struggle is not the key, alignment is. Prayer is not begging. Faith activates what is already prepared. Visualization shapes reality from the inside out. Peace is the first sign that a breakthrough has already begun. Releasing fear and guilt clears the channel, and sustained expectation keeps the miracle alive. These are not temporary techniques. They are spiritual principles that work consistently when practiced with sincerity. Do not measure today's impact only by what you can see right now. Some changes begin quietly. A calm heart, renewed confidence, and clear direction are signs that something real is already happening beneath the surface. Faith often works silently before it becomes visible. Trust that what has been set in motion will reach completion. Carry this understanding with you beyond this moment. Guard your words. Protect your peace. Stay grateful. Remain expectant. Let faith guide your actions instead of fear. When you do, you are no longer chasing provision. You are walking in alignment with it. Most importantly, remember that you are not alone in this process. God is not distant. He is present, guiding, supplying, and preparing what you need at the right time and in the right way. Stay steady. Stay faithful. What you have prayed for is not delayed. It is unfolding.